that they are launching satellites, right? So just like Iran is a model of survival, look what you can do when you're unified. Look what you can do when you have good leadership. Look what you can do when you can maintain your focus. You can be independent. Look at that message. Who else in that region? Is Saudi Arabia independent? Absolutely not. It's a flunky, a stooge for the United States of America. Are any of the Arab Gulf states there independent? Absolutely not, right? So nobody is really independent except the United States, except the Islamic Republic of Iran, fighting the United States of America. Now, there's another point that I want to add. Inside of America, we're having the same effect. We're showing the people what can be done. And actually, we're showing the people how to do it. Nobody believed historically that anyone could stand for 40 years in front of the FBI. People last 2 or 3 weeks when the FBI come to get them. Groups and organizations are squeezed and shattered. Here we are showing the people what can be done. You know what we said about Oakland? We called Oakland from Stalingrad to Oakland. Why did we use the term Stalingrad? You know, Americans believed that D-Day, June the 6th, 1944, was the imminent, the invasion of France, that this was the beginning of the downfall of Nazi Germany. It wasn't. Stalingrad was. Stalingrad was. After Stalingrad, the Germans were on the run on the Eastern Front, and they're the ones that's made it possible for the Western invasion of France on D-Day. There was no more German victories after Stalingrad, right? So we say from Stalingrad to Oakland. In other words, this is the final stop, or the first stop in the super escalation in the decline of the United States of America. And when it goes down, it's going to take all of its friends with it. Iran's rise is raising us all up. But I want the people of Iran to know, right now, in the United States, we're doing our part. We are not going to be pushed around. Okay, they might beat us upside the head, they might put us in jail, but as long as you keep working, right, then there's a possibility of your survival and your winning. They still assault Iran. They still sanction Iran. They make a treaty with Iran and break it whenever they get ready. They break into our masjid, they send us to jail, they beat us up upside the head anytime they want, but their decline is coming. You see, that's what all of these things are. We are a representative of the time, like Iran is a representative of the time. Let me show you a headline from the so-called Muslims. It says, conference focuses on how social invisibility of African American Muslims lead to psychological trauma and suffering. These are everybody but us. These are all many of the African American imams. This is the article they wrote, that they're suffering psychological trauma because of invisibility. In other words, they're not out there. They're saying it themselves. What about us? This is from over 2 years ago. We're out there. We're visible. We're not afraid. Here it is, the whole African American community is saying, We are suffering from a traumatic situation because we're suffering from social, political, and psychological invisibility. We feel invisible and unnecessary. We are not with them. All of these brothers are nice, right?
Right.
They have brought that on themselves. We are not with them. We're with them on everything good, everything progressive, but we do not suffer invisibility. Think about it. We're out there the other day broadcasting a program to the Islamic Republic of Iran from the middle of that demonstration.
Right.
Do you know what that means? That means that we can't be afraid of them because they hate the Islamic Republic. I mean, they hate it. You know what? I don't think the Iranian people know how many groups and organizations and universities and think tanks and lectures that they have against the Islamic Republic. They couldn't because it's so many, we don't even know all of them, right? Now imagine we're so-called American citizens. And we out there saying, we with y'all our homeboys, we with you, right? And then the American people, they look at it and they're starting to think. When we passed out certain flyers and DVDs, we've got response from the American people. Yeah, we've gotten response from the American people. So we are going to continue to do our job here in the United States, whether the Americans, the CIA, Homeland Security, FBI, and all of those bums, NSA, whether they like it or not, right? Whether they like it or not. The last thing I know time is short, but let me say this. The Islamic Republic could not have survived on its own. It couldn't have done it. What's the message for the people of Iran? Rise above cliquism, groupism. Think first about Islam, right? Make sure that Ahlul Bayt is not a victim of internal sectarianism. Who's for Walayati Faqih and who's not, right? In elections, this is something they have to do. In an election, you can have your group and you're against this, you're against that, and you da-da-da-da-da. But when the people select a leader, a president, or parliamentarians, that means you should either, if you're against it, you should either help them push their program or at least remain neutral. Don't work against them. If you do, you'll become American politicians, Democrats and Republicans, right? If a Republican is nominated and wins the election, the Democrats unite to prevent them from instituting their program or to slow it down, right? That means you got 60 on this side and 40 on the other. Look at the harm they can do. The same thing with us. When a person is elected or selected, we should help that person, right?
Right.
Or remain neutral because the person is a Muslim. And he's 95% of the time he's going to be Shia, right? If it's Iran. And the other part, you're representing Ahlul Bayt at this time, and you have to do a good job. You can't get into cliquism and little smallism. You can't do it. I'm saying we owe this to the sacrifices of Ahlul Bayt, and each Walaya or Walayati Faqih, as the years go by, will have to emulate the Imams of Ahlul Bayt. They'll have to be peacemakers, right? Sometimes they'll have to be focused on war and struggle and defense and jihad. Sometimes they may have to be like Imam Jafar Sadiq on education and training, right? Each one that comes after us for the next decades will have, let's call it, issues of the time. And they're going to have to focus on that, and we're going to have to trust that person, but we're going to have to be behind that person.
Right.
And when we don't agree, we have to talk it out and out and out and out, and then get busy. The one thing I want to say that may not have anything to do with this, but it does. Do you notice how efficient and how effective the Communist Party in China is? How they can plan far ahead? Because they're an old society. Guess what? China is an old society, and so is Iran.
Right.
There's things that Iranians are doing right now that affect the United States, and it's running it's crazy. Why? Because we call it game, but there's strategy that Iran has, there's strategy that the Chinese have from their ancient societies that are ingrained in their history. And they are not totally aware of what fishing in muddy water really means. They think, to them, if we muddy the water, we can catch more fish. But they don't know what it means to Iranians. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
The point I'm making is, Allah is on our side. But we have to maximize our love and friendship for each other. We should not exclude any group inside of Iran. We should all cooperate with each other. And when we cannot cooperate, at minimum, right, we would try to cooperate or remain neutral. So anyway, I didn't mean to be long-winded, but I know you're just taping this, so use what you like. And what was the last question you had now?
This is it. This covers it all. This is all the time we have. I have to edit some things out, but thank you for doing it now. Although we were planning on doing it live, but I can't risk it. And I would like to have the words precisely translated and rendered.
Right, I can understand that. I can understand that.
Now,
Very good.
also think about perhaps translating the whole thing and putting it in another context, so the audience in another venue can listen to your entire talk in this part. But we'll see what happens. I'm going to start working right now to the translator tonight. It's 11 o'clock at night now.
You know, there's one more thing I'd like to say. Do you remember several years ago,
Yes.
we were going out to some place, and the driver didn't know exactly where it was, and he turned into an industrial parking lot, and I said, maybe you're trying to go to another place. And remember, I led y'all exactly to the place that we were going to go to?
Yes, I did.
Do you remember that night? And I said, at this place, you're going to see an old American Chevrolet there. And we got, do you remember that?
Yes,
Right, and we got there, and that's where it was. I'm saying this to say something about during the old days, doing traveling around and making all those speeches for the Islamic Republic years ago and for the Muslim students here, I had to make certain decisions. One of the decisions I had to make that I know I was followed everywhere by the American government. I already know that. And I know that everywhere I went, it was going to expose the Iranian students, you know, especially the leaders, because if you're having a program, if you're having it on campus or wherever, right, they get to, wherever you go, they know that that's an important spot. So in a way, you're going to help them. But then I had to make another decision, was do the government already know who they are and where they are? And I came to the decision that I would be more of a help by continuing to travel around to each campus and to inspire, encourage, and to direct the activity of the Islamic Iranian students in America. I had to make a decision on that. And I made the one that I would keep going, although it exposed the students to some harm, the good that I could do by firing them. Imagine all those young guys and sisters here in those days. Imagine one of the first lectures I gave that was really serious was right after 7th of Tier. It was at the University of California. In fact, Javad Larijani was the head student there, and another brother named Mujtaba. They were the main. And when I walked into Dwinell Hall, I could see the people had been crying all night long. You know when their eyes are puffy and what have you? Well, you can see it mostly in the sisters. They're sitting on one side, the brothers sitting on the other. You can see it mostly in them because brothers are so-called men and they're not supposed to be crying a lot, but the women let it out. Right. And, you know, one of our brothers, you know him, he's there now, he said to me, he said, what you did for us in those days, it gave us a feeling of security, and it was like a parent telling us everything is going to be all right, because you got to remember how uncertain those early days of the revolution was. You see what I mean? So I said that to say is we have a symbiotic relationship between Iran and us.
So true, so true.
And so any advice or direction that you get from me is going to be sincere and honest and focused. So, the last thing, I believe in the concept of Vilayati Faqih, and I support it. Afghanistan don't have Vilayati Faqih, and they have tons of fitna, although 30% of the people there are Shias. Iraq don't have Vilayati Faqih, they're doing better now, but it's still. If you look at Pakistan, if you look at Afghanistan, all of these places, they don't have Vilayati Faqih. And I think that that institution during this time is our most cherished, or one of our most cherished institutions. And I suggest to all Iranians, all Shias, all Sunnis. Well, okay, we're Sunnis. You don't have to convince us because we have the concept of caliphate and leadership, right? We just don't have any that's any good. So that's our own problem. we don't have any that's any good. But y'all got excellent leadership. Thank you very much. I don't want to take all your time. And
Thank you so much.
oh no,
Thank you so
alhamdulillah,
much, Brother
alhamdulillah.
Abdulaziz. It was a wonderful talk. It was partly question and answers, and then some very great comments that you added. I truly appreciate it. We'll see how much of it we can put into the program.
Right, right. Just do what you can.
And, yeah, and I'll be in touch with you. I have some questions about some of the stuff in the streets. I'm going to ask you tomorrow because my mind is too slow right now. It's too late.
Okay, don't worry. Just keep calling.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Take good care. And God bless you. Inshallah, we'll see you and talk to you soon.
Very good. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Now we'll still continue with ours. Okay, very good. All right. All right.
You finished? Okay. I'll go ahead and hang up.
All right. So we'll just continue with our.
Can you switch over to this mic?
Okay.
The sound will come through a little bit sharper on this one.
Oh, okay.
This one. Okay. Tap it real quick. Just tap it. Perfect.
That's all right?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. We'll continue. The first part of this lecture was one that was being pre-recorded for our brothers in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And now we'll continue with our talk for today. Basis of collective ideas, and we say like thoughts of things. One thing we realize about ourselves and some of the people that we're with, we just talked about a symbiotic relationship between ourselves and the Islamic Republic of Iran. And we know that that's true because, look, here in America, you have to wonder why no Muslims were out supporting the issues that we have right now. Why are the Muslim organizations, the great organizations, like CARE, and like the, what do they call themselves? Muslim Legal Fund of America. Yeah, Muslim Legal Fund of America. All right. Why are all